Uptown. What's going on, Jim? Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I missed your last guest, and I would have liked to discuss this idea with him. First off, organic food. I always find it interesting, and that's a big sort of trendy thing now, organic food. Now, I've yet to kind of understand what that means. But I think there's something a little bit more important that I think we'd all like to go after, and that is alternative transportation. Could you imagine, instead of driving a large vehicle across the causeway and commuting, you were able to drive maybe a single-person motorcycle like vehicle that got 80 to 100 miles per gallon, and you were protected from the weather, you had a little air conditioning to keep you cool, or heat to keep you warm. But and even here in town where you'd say, yeah, I'd like to ride a bicycle, it's only a mile from my house, but then you realize the safety of riding on the street. So
did you hear about the story I talked about earlier, that we are one of the worst places in America to bicycle? That we have one of the highest death rates in the country?
Potholes, and then we have ignorant drivers that don't know how. And then what gets me, we have bicycle riders, particularly down in the French Quarter, in the Marigny and the Bywater, with these new residents of New Orleans that are so enlightened. They ride bicycles, and they don't know how to ride a bicycle properly.
And don't forget baseball bat-wielding attackers, too. Don't forget them. They're out there.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is there are a lot of things that we would like to do, but we've not made the circumstances in order to practice effective, being green, or whatever descriptive term you want to use. But we're not getting there. And so I'd like to go ride a bicycle.
Right.
But for a lot of us, who wants to risk getting on the road and looking for a guy killed in New Orleans East on Chef Highway?
Right.
But, I'd honestly say, I don't know if Chef Highway is a great place to go ride a bicycle, considering we have people that don't pay attention to driving down the road. I mean, not only... motorists are not really, in many cases, watching what they're doing. We've got, of course, a lot of problems with accidents, insurance rates, potholes, as you say. So just beware out there, and let's see what we can do as far as bringing these numbers down. As we had talked about earlier, as Jim alluded to, New Orleans, one of the worst places in the country as far as bicycling, one of the highest death rates in the country. Jim, thanks for your call, sir. One quick one, and then Steve Sabludowsky is going to be joining us from Bayoubuzz.com. Livewire checking in with us. What's going on, Livewire? Good morning.
Quickly, last week while you were out of town, a small debate had arisen as to who's the biggest coward of them all, and I wasn't able to chime in, so I'll chime in today on that. The biggest coward of them all is Satanist Zorro, who doesn't ever want to show his pretty pink panties and pretty pink skirt that he wears all the time, and step out of his sewage and placement hellhole and admit to who he is. And he could have come forward and claimed his prize when he won the bet between you and he and the other Satan-worshipping scum suckers. So he is truly the biggest coward of them all. And before any one of his scum sucker friends calls in to take up on his behalf, the point is, I have fully put myself out in the past in the media via my political endeavors. Therefore, there is no shroud that I'm putting over myself. I preach the gospel, death, burial, resurrection of Jesus, and that Satan-worshipping scum sucker, Satanic Zorro, is the biggest coward of them all. Thank you.
Live Wire. All right. Next with us, one of our Ringside All-Stars. He joins us on Tuesdays. Filled in for us last week while I was off on my honeymoon. Steve Sabludowsky will be with us, publisher of Bayoubuzz.com. We'll also open up our phone lines, take more of your phone calls, 504-556-9696. But first, let's take care of some business. Quick time out. Keep it right here on WGSO.
Mr. Red's Seafood and Italian Restaurant, serving the best fried chicken in town, fresh Louisiana seafood, as well as delicious Italian dishes. Try our daily chef specials or an overstuffed po' boy. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah, listen, we're live right now.
Okay.
Hold on, let me. So basically, I want to make sure that we are able to do this without doing the Beatles song.
Don't forget. Now,
so after the Beatles song is finished, just put your finger up, okay? And because I'm going to turn off the audio during the time.
Inspiration for Lewis's own fantasy novels, like Lewis.
The Beatles song doesn't appear on our segment, Steve, because you don't start the hour with me.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
So
great.
I don't need to do any of that.
That's great. Okay, thanks.
It is when tomorrow's burden is added to the burden of today that the weight becomes more than a man can bear. The secret to living a worry-free life is not avoiding life's burdens. It is learning to give those burdens over to God every day so they can never accumulate and become more than you can bear. This is David Jeremiah encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God's remedy for worry on Route 66.
Route 66, driving the word home. Log on to Route66Life.com. Start your journey home today.
You need AC help right now? Call River City Air Express right now, and they'll come to you right now. River City Air Express, East Bank, West Bank, North Shore. River City Air Express is there. Call 841-3300.
990 AM.
Young's Dry Cleaning is the metro area's premier dry cleaner. Young's Dry Cleaning has absolutely free pickup and delivery, too. To get on the free pickup and delivery list, call Young's at 288-8381 or go online, youngsdrycleaning.com.
It's another edition of Ringside Politics with a Punch and Jeff Croure. We're on the air right now. The topics are hot. The host is cool. And we're waiting for you to shed some sunlight on our vast listening audience. Call Jeff Croure now at 556-9696.
All right, you say in the program, we have a Ringside All-Star who checks in with us on Tuesdays. Very pleased to have with us a publisher of Bayoubuzz.com. He's with us via the hotline and also Google Talk. The Hangout is live on Bayoubuzz.com. And, of course, also you can hear it on 990 AM and WGSO.com. Steve Sabludowsky with us. And, Steve, what's going on? Good morning.
Hey, Jeff, good morning to you. And I'm sure you had a wonderful honeymoon.
It was relaxing, and it was so easy, Steve, to go right on the cruise ship right here in New Orleans. I mean, I can't tell you how fantastic that was. And we saw Roatan, we went down to Belize, 2 stops in Mexico. It was fantastic. Norwegian does a great job. The cruise liner was fantastic. I recommend them. And there's nothing better than just going right down to the cruise terminal and getting on right there. It took us about 5 minutes. So it was nice.
Sure. That's absolutely amazing. Well, congratulations and thank you. I had a really fun time last Tuesday. We did 4 hours. We had Bernie Pincinat and Lauren Shahardy and Tyler Bridges on with me, and I really thank your guests for being patient and cordial, and I think it was very informative.
Well, you had stellar guests right there. Those 3 are outstanding, and glad I had full faith that you were able to hang for the full 4, and glad it was so successful, had good reviews. So,
oh, good. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that. So as far as this week, the questions, I guess, about McAllister are still swirling out there, right, the congressman?
Yeah, I assume so. There's the question as to the conspiracy or so-called conspiracy as to how this thing came about. And, the question I have is whether or not that's going to hurt whoever the Governor Jindal and GOP gang put up as a competitor. Assuming for a second that that McAllister decides to run. And even if he doesn't, I think that that's still an issue.
What did you make of Roger Villery calling for his resignation? Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did surprise me, to be honest with you. I didn't think that anybody could be that hypocritical.
Does this bring more unwanted attention to David Vitter, you think?
Oh,
this
absolutely.
whole issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say hypocritical, here's the thing. I know that there's rationales on all sides of this. I mean, there are a lot of differences between the Vitter situation and this situation. But the reason why I say hypocritical, and again, I like Roger. Roger has been a friend of mine. Maybe not, but maybe not now. But but nevertheless, and I think he's done a great job regardless. But as I mentioned in my column on WGSO-Bayoubuzz as well as on the broadcast last week, basically, the reasons he gave for wanting to get rid of McAllister was couched in morality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a reason. It was couched in the fact that this guy failed in his position as a political government leader, and so and people will say, well, there's a big difference between McAllister and Vitter, and there is. Number one you have a video, and the other one you have records of phone
call records, right?
But here's my point on that, if you don't mind.
As well as on the record interviews with people like the Canal Street Madam and Wendy Cortez.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, and you're right. And I don't know to what extent I accept those. I mean, there's some inconsistencies, I believe, to be fair. However, let me just say this. I mean, I don't think that the Republican Party, and I don't think Democratic Party in other situations are doing their duties to investigate, to find out, to ask questions. This whole thing becomes so political. In this case, they don't want Mary Landrieu to win, so they try to get rid of McAllister. The bottom line is ask questions. I mean, has any of the GOP people asked questions to Vitter? Like, hey, why don't you tell us the truth? You haven't told anything. You haven't said anything to the media about this at all. You said you have because you said it's a horrible sin, terrible sin, but you haven't even told us what the sin is. I mean, there is a scrutiny I think that people should go through when they fall like this. So, that's where I believe that that the GOP in this particular case was extremely hypocritical.
So, and by doing what they did, brought up the whole Vitter thing again. I mean, that's part of what happened. Now, as far as McAllister, though, just to talk about him for a second, I think he's going to be in tough shape in that district if he's going to run again. Let's say he doesn't resign. Looks like he's not going to resign, right, Steve? I mean, they call for him to resign. He's not.
That's my understanding also. And look, he can finance his own campaign. The question is whether he'll do so. A lot's going to be as to his family situation. Although I understand that he's come out with his wife publicly, but not to apologize publicly. And yeah, I mean that's a real question. I think he's going to use his conspiracy issue to his benefit. And whether or not that wins it for today, and keep in mind, despite all this national recognition and notoriety, look at where he is on the polls right now. He's almost at 50%. And in a one-on-one battle against the senator who ran against him, that was the general supported candidate. I mean, he does not win on one-on-one. But he's not way down in the 30s either.
Right.
He's not where General is right now.
But the question is, I think Duck Dynasty. I mean, it's as crazy as it sounds. I think they played a role in his victory, and I don't see them coming out for him again. Do you?
I don't know. That's up to them. I do I see it? I don't know enough about them to say,
Okay.
No, I really don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did endorse him in the last election. You did know that. They were prominently featured in his campaign, and I think they played a role in his victory. All right, let's take some calls. 504-556-9696 to join us. Brought to you by our friends at Sir Speedy. Steve Sabludowsky with us. It's an open line. Ringside, Jeff Croure here. We welcome our friend James in Metairie. All right, James, good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, Jeff, I'm fine, thank you. Hello, Steve.
Hey, James.
Steve, it's highly, highly doubtful that we'll ever learn, as you said, what the sin or sins of David Bitter are, because primarily I think most people realize that what he did, if we are to assume that he went down and had sex multiple times with a prostitute, could have committed sodomy or had sodomy committed on him, and did all of this, Steve, while his wife was pregnant, and by having sex with the prostitute and soliciting for it, that is against the law. He will never admit to breaking the law, I don't think. Steve, the other thing is, I spoke to Jeff about this yesterday. Jeff's former partner on talk radio, Chris Tidmore, has an article in the Louisiana Weekly, and I'm trying to pull that up right now, and I'm not having a lot of success. Anyway, basically, it recounts from an unknown source within the GOP, according to Chris Tidmore, where Roger Villery wanted to talk to Vance McAllister, the chief of staff for McAllister, was trying to get a hold of him. Anyway, I finally asked Villery, what do you want? And he said, well, I'm going to ask him to resign. From memory, I'm trying to recall, evidently this chief of staff called back to Roger Villery and said, if you do that, he is prepared to expose, to out a whole series of Republican office holders here in the state of Louisiana who are also having extramarital sex. Now that's in the Louisiana Weekly. I think it was published on the 14th of this month. And I wanted to know if you saw that. And finally, I'm looking at something on BayoubUbuzz right now where small item, according to the Louisiana Democratic Party press release, they're calling for an initiative, I guess, to let the people of the state of Louisiana to vote on whether or not Medicaid should be expanded here in the state. You know, the conservatives, especially the Christian conservatives, love to talk about, well, the people voted, and they voted no on same-sex marriage, and that's the voice of the people. Now, let's say how likely is it, Steve, that we're going to see this? That the people will be able to vote? Because, Jeff and Steve, there are people in this state who are not getting medical care because of the selfish motives of Bobby Jindal wanting to enhance his political career nationally. And I'll just listen off.
All right. I'll respond, and then I'll turn it over to Steve. I think it's unlikely that you'll have a vote on that statewide. If you did, I don't think it would pass. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, regarding his other comment, I actually did read the article, and that's because James had brought it up last week. We did post part of that article regarding the threat that was made, or alleged threat that was made, and I communicated with Tidmore about it, and he told me that there was going to be a follow-up. So, James, I'll check that out and see whether or not there is a follow-up. I mean, obviously, my question is, how does this this person working for McAllister at the time, and still, how does he know who is doing what? Do they have cameras in the bedrooms of the elected officials? I mean, how do they know? So, it's just something that I mean, Tidmore had wrote about, and we'll check it out. As far as the other, I agree with Jeff about one thing here, and that is that I don't think that Louisiana voters would approve it. Am I in favor of it? Well, I would want to ask, why is this different from other issues in where there might be a referendum on the ballot? You can always make the argument that well, the people should decide instead of the legislators. So why is this different? I'm not saying it's not. Personally, I think it's going to cost Louisiana a lot more money and hurt a lot more people not extending the Medicaid situation if Governor General does not have a plan. And to my knowledge right now, he doesn't have a plan to be able to deal with this situation.
Well, he did announce a plan, a healthcare plan, but I think that was more national in scope. I think that was a few weeks ago that he released his own healthcare plan.
Well, yeah, and isn't that kind of interesting that he released a 50-page, I'm exaggerating, healthcare plan, national healthcare plan, but down here in Louisiana, where he's governor, at least I believe he is, we don't have a plan. The hospitals, for an example, say they're losing on this, okay, because they're not being reimbursed sufficiently. So this whole thing, if he's got a plan.
Well, just to clarify, he's not the only governor who has decided not to expand Medicaid. I mean, that's been a position that I think the majority of Republican governors have taken.
Sure, and I agree, and I think that they need to make the argument what they're going to do in place of.
Mm-hmm.
Not every state has the incredible poverty and 49 or 50 in the nation in terms of bad health, and which has actually been aggravated by Jindal, because we could have done something about smoking in public places, and he was against that. The only time that he was in favor of it was to raise revenues for the state. So, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Now, he makes the claim that expanding Medicaid is something we can't afford, that would bust our budget. You don't buy that?
Well, from everything I've read in terms of legislators, I don't think they buy it either. I mean, please, if I'm wrong there, if they can show me how paying 10% of the budget. What concerns me is what it may do to the federal budget, but I'm not concerned as much about what's going to do to the state budget.
But of course, the federal budget is funded by what? Taxpayers, right? I mean, isn't it all our money? I mean, we pay for it one way or another, don't we?
Yes, it is, and I think that's an argument, and I've always said that one thing that concerns me is what might happen nationally. But statewide, I mean, right now we have an article on WGSO-Bayoubuzz where written by Tyler Bridges, if I'm not mistaken, where we're going to be close to $1 billion in the hole next year. General is going to be up there in Washington, and we're going to be suffering from Generalese. And
let's do this. Limited time, but I want to squeeze in one more call. Let's give the floor to the Flaming Liberal. Limited time. Go ahead, Flaming Liberal. Go ahead. You've got the floor.
By the way, Bobby Jindal's Only Health and Health and Hospitals did a study and found it would save the state money over a 10-year period. Jeff, I just sent you an Associated Press article. I think the holy grail of news reporting. And Steve, I gave you a copy as well. And Steve, thank you for allowing me to get a plug in when you were hosting last week for my May 22nd, 2010 Vitter column when you had Pinsonet on, and I think it left him speechless. But the guy who owns the website said there was a huge spike in hits on my Vitter column. But Jeff, getting back to that article I just sent to you, according to the Associated Press, the journal Science, the holy grail of scientific reporting, found that a fossil study from the last ice age found that the Earth, the warming of the temperature is happening more rapidly right now than it did at the end of the last great ice age.
All right, I'll check out that article. Thank you, Flaming Liberal. Thank you, Steve Sabludowsky. Appreciate it very much. Whole lot more coming your way. We got to roll because it's 10 o'clock. Time for the latest from NBC News.